This is the One Piece Podcast, episode 775 for the week of June 26, 2023. My name is Zach.
And my name is Ed.
And my name is Steve.
And on today's episode, we have anime recap host Sam D. Leach. That's, I assume.
That's not my middle name.
No? Your middle, is it just D-E-E? It's not? Do you want to tell it? Do you want to dox yourself and tell your middle name here?
No, we're good.
Okay. And Sam is joining us for the whole episode as we talk with our special guest today, Henry D. Thurlow. Can we confirm the initial in your name, Henry?
You can. I am actually Henry D. Thurlow. There was a bunch of posts that were saying, Henry, wrote that as like a joke. Even Japanese comments were like, the episode director wrote it as a joke. That's funny. But in fact, I am Henry David Thurlow. So the D is real. I am part of the D clan, and the big reveal is it stood for David the whole time.
I was gonna say, wow,
aren't middle names basically fictitious in Japan?
Oh yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Well, it's definitely a foreigner thing, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Good to know. So today we're going to be talking about Henry's journey to get to episode 1066. There's so many questions I know we all have, and I'm sure Henry will answer about the episode itself and the making of, and then we'll talk a little bit about if Henry is able to answer anything, what comes next. So Henry, I know we talked a little bit about it last week, and I know we talked a little bit about it over the last few months. You were hinting at the big thing and why you were waiting for this big moment in your time at Toei. But for those who don't remember or weren't listening for some reason, you want to go through how you got to where we are today?
Well, I mean, I think everyone listening probably generally knows who they're listening to, right? But like the quick version is, was an animator in New York, wanted to make my own anime episode or movie or whatever. Moved out to Japan years ago. Been working my way through the anime industry. A couple of years back, entered Toei Animation. Been working on One Piece ever since. But then after working on Key Animation a whole bunch of times, I kind of disappeared for a whole bunch of months there, and I was hinting at something big. And the big thing was I was directing an episode. So, and not just any episode, but a big episode. So the big Kid and Law versus Big Mom final battle was directed by yours truly, an episode director, not a series director. I explained the difference about that kind of last time. But yeah, so I've been focusing on this fight, episode 1066, for a while now. I take responsibility essentially for it. I storyboarded the episode. I was there for all the meetings in terms of edits and compositing effects and things like that. So if you love the episode, it's a guarantee that you love some of the stuff that I decided and added. And if you hate the episode or hate parts of it or whatever, you can finally put your blame on me. In the past, people would be like, Henry, I didn't like your episode, and be like, well, is that the part that I worked on? That's not the part I worked on. So what are you talking about? But this time I am truly kind of responsible for start to finish decision making through every single sequence. Obviously, there's key animators and tons of artists that worked on it, and I have to thank all of them from the bottom of my heart. But every sequence went through me multiple times. So yeah, I was aware of how everything was moving forward and could have altered it if need be. And this is the episode I made. I'm super proud of it. Is it perfect? No, but I think the things that I don't like, no one else knows about or doesn't notice. There were certain sequences that didn't work exactly as I had in mind originally when I storyboarded it, let's say. But in the end, like the way we got it working still works fine. And so no one really notices that, right? No one knows what my original intent was necessarily. And so yeah, I think like there's no part of the episode that I can say, oh no, I dropped the ball on, or that one really didn't work out. Again, some hiccups, but that's only for kind of me to know. I'm pretty sure me and the whole team really worked crazy hard and delivered what I was hoping to deliver. So I hope everyone enjoyed it. I hope everyone thinks it's worthy of a big final One Piece battle, just like the Sanji fight and the Zoro fight. And yeah, that's where we are today.
It's the curse of being an artist.
Yeah.
No, like knowing like everything you wish you could have done better.
Yeah.
There is a point when just making any work of art, you just have to let it go. And as far as I can tell, I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't know what you had a problem with
exactly.
This episode, but I feel the same way. Anything I work on, I'm like, oh no, this could be more fine tuned, but there's no such thing as perfectionism in this, and it's a good thing. It's not. You guys also have a deadline, so that you're not constantly changing things and rewriting things. So.
Well, that's the thing. Some of the independent or independently produced projects, indie films and stuff, they don't have deadlines. And so on the one hand, that's cool because if you get to the end and you want an extra month, you can finesse whatever you want. But the bad thing is, like, there is no deadline, and as an artist, like, that's gonna happen forever. And there's some indie artists out there that just like they never release their thing. It's like 10 years, 15 years, and you're just infinitely waiting because they never just decide to be like, okay, it's done. You know what I mean? And that can be at least a good thing. It should be viewed as a good thing. Like, everyone wants more time, but that deadline is positive in the sense that when the deadline passes, you're done with it. You finally finished a chapter of your life, and that is because the artists will just keep it going forever and ever without that.
Yeah, we're terrible. We're awful. we can't decide our own deadlines.
Yeah.
But I take that advice, and I'm very much not an artist. I take that advice to heart all the time, where I'm like, I have to stop working on a thing because there's just a point of diminishing returns, I think, at some point, where you're doing it for you, but no one else notices. Henry, I also want to ask, I remember, I think it was when we had you on for the Jimbei, or the one before that, the Law, and I think it was the Law and Kid fighting Big Mom on the roof, or Big Mom and Kaido on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you discussing how you were kind of at a crossroads between doing, one cool scene every few episodes, or waiting a while and doing something really cool. So I was just going to ask two things related to that.
Mm-hmm.
First, when you were at that crossroads, was this specific episode handed to you, or did you have a choice of episodes, or how did that exactly work?
I'm gonna plead the fifth and not go into the decision making of the series directors and stuff like that. But it was at that point where I knew that there's a route to make something amazing. I'm at the point in my career where I felt I could do it, and then also I was sitting in the room with the decision-making people who could grant me the privilege of actually doing that, right? So I felt so close to being able to accomplish something giant, right? Not that all of my sequences before weren't an honor to work on, and that alone is super cool to have gotten into the One Piece staff. But I feel like right in front of me, looking around the room and the people in front of me and who I get to talk to, and the skill level I'm at, if I just play my cards right, I can really make something amazing, And so that is where I was, and that is kind of what I was discussing with people in the room. So I was looking for an appropriate time. There were certain fights that I absolutely love in this Wano Kuni saga, and then other moments which I won't go into, but that might surprise people, that I don't love particularly necessarily, and didn't feel like that would be an appropriate time to shine. So I wanted to let everyone know my feelings about where I felt I could do something amazing. And there were a few, and then we all talked behind the scenes, and I was very, very lucky that at the end of the day it was the 3 series directors that made the ultimate decision, along with probably a couple producers. So I really do thank them for deciding I was worthy of the responsibility of such a big episode. I mean, this is huge. It's the one non-straw hat fight. So I to be honest, if I'm being cynical, there might have been a little bit of like, well, at least he won't mess up a straw hat. Like that's the but even with that cynicism, this is still clearly one of the top 4 fights of the entire saga, and so that's huge, right? And I'm really thankful that they gave me the okay to move forward with it. Yeah. And another thing I was debating back when in my own mind back when we talked was I said, like, there's kind of 2 routes you can go. You can go the episode director route, or you can go the animation director route, and those are kind of different routes. One is very specific when it comes to like just your artwork, and your artwork influence will be all over the episode, and the other one would be you storyboard and kind of direct timing and editing and stuff, right? So the episode director and the animation director of any given episode, those are the 2 biggest names, and they both have massive responsibilities. But for me, I felt episode director, and actually taking a step back and looking at the overall totality of an episode, and how the episode plays out, and how all the animators sequences link with each other and stuff, I felt like that's what I like to do the best, and probably what I would be best at. So yeah, I went the episode director
because
Sam.
It's interesting because that said, the episode does have your like animation influence. Your art is kind of like all over the episode. It seems like there's like most of the episode I would have pegged as the Henry scene in another episode.
That's super funny. Well, it's funny, but also I get it. Every sequence. This isn't a Toei thing, so this is why I can say it. This is just a very general Japanese anime process thing, in all studios. And every single sequence goes through the episode director and the animation director of the episode at least 2 or 3 times, probably more, unless it's like a sequence that's just working perfectly and you can just check off okay. But so the 2 individuals who are constantly adding stuff and altering stuff are those 2, the episode director and the animation director. And so on the one hand, I know that the animation director, Kitazaki-san in this case, and then also Ichikawa-san, who is the chief animation director of the series, also took a bunch of corrections on this episode. I know that they made a whole bunch of corrections that like I didn't even ask for, didn't want, and even to my own sequences. And so for me, the way that I was personally going to draw some things is different from kind of how it ended up. But at the so on the one hand, I disagree with you. Like, no, like it's totally like they totally got their style. But on the other hand, every single sequence did pass through my fingers a whole handful of times. And so there is some level of my fingerprint on literally every sequence. So when I think about that, then it does kind of make sense.
I think I'm mostly responding to like the, like to me, like one of your standout characteristics is like the layered shadows. I feel like that's very prominent in the episode. I
did either draw that myself or request it of the animation director on a whole bunch of sequences, like make sure there is a secondary key shadow behind this guy's head or something like that. Yeah. I was told I can't do that the entire episode though. They were like, Henry, you can't go that crazy with every sequence. Like, this takes time, right? And so there, like, it was a slight balance. There are some times where it's not there. It kind of depended on the key animator and how much I was going to correct. Like if someone handed in something absolutely amazing, I was like, well, one animator, Levant, who I think he's either it might be first time on One Piece. He was a friend of Chris, that animator Chris that pops up a whole bunch, and he worked on my episode, and I really liked his work. He did like Big Mom's arm breaking, and then
that was
really cool, right?
I forgot that happened in the manga.
Me too.
It's brutal in the anime.
I'll talk about it, but I did go back to the chapter, and I want to talk
the
about
little smiley faces on the little bone shards.
Yeah, I like that. That was not in the manga, as Henry could probably tell you.
Yeah, and but like that sequence, as far as I remember, doesn't have the crazy secondary shadows and everything like that. As far as I remember, I might have put like one, but I don't think so. I think it was like good to go as is, and I was like, okay, fine. I won't mess with it. Plus, the production managers and everyone is right. I shouldn't make the style too different. Where I can. So if it was good to go, I just like put it through. But there was a lot of animators that I work with that also just like those. Like Sheeta worked on the episode, and Sheeta always goes crazy with the shadows and stuff. My own sequences, which were plenty, had those shadows. And there were some sequences, there was a lot of sequences where like I had to change stuff because the animator might have done a great job. But like I mentioned this last time, one thing the episode director has to do is they have to look at the totality of an episode, not the individual sequence. So like some people handed me great stuff, but I was like, I know how this links with the 5 sequences before it and the 5 after, and like the character can't do this, you know what I mean? Like even some of the best artists, which you'd think like you wouldn't dare correct something they did, right? Under normal circumstances, no, because their animation's so amazing. But as I look at the totality of the episode, I might need to say the whole end of this sequence, the character needs to swing their head in that direction, not that direction. So yes, I may have put even corrections on literally anybody's. And when I did that, that's where I might have snuck in. And since we're correcting drawings, like how about we get a little dark red under that ear and a little bit dark red around the eyes right there, like a little extra shadow. How about that? Yeah.
Jaws 2. I think Henry has a specific jaw. If that makes sense.
Oh, I thought you were
talking about the movie.
I did too. I was like, Jaws 2. This is interesting.
The Revenge.
I'm like, I wonder where this comparison is going.
Not Jaws 3D.
I know that this is a drawing by a man who watches Jaws 2 every year.
Henry, I guess before segueing into the episode itself, I do want to say I think impressive is an understatement, the team that you assembled for this episode. And I know you'll go
Crazy
through each
team.
of them individually.
Yeah.
I was floored each time I think you mentioned, or I saw a post by that person come up.
I'm sorry if we covered this previously. It's been a week. What percentage would you say of the animators were picked by you?
A whole lot.
Okay. Yeah.
Well,
I'm sure like
and
you definitely
it's not-
kind of you went through your Rolodex.
well,
I was just curious
well,
on
no,
like, how much
the reason I
power
say
you
that
got.
the reason I hesitate is because under normal circumstances, and again, this is not just Toei, this is across the board in Japanese anime. Under normal circumstances, the production managers would be responsible for assembling the team. But there are some directors out there, right, where like probably certain artists are going to work on their stuff. So I kind of I was stubborn and I said like I actually want to invite a whole lot of people because I would like that too. I would like just in my life for there to be some people that I know I can call, and like, and I know the kind of quality that they would deliver. And so there was a whole bunch of people I wanted to try, and a whole bunch of people I wanted to reach out to from my past, who I wanted to kind of work with again and see how they would do on Japanese anime.
And I figure an episode like this with so many foreign animators on it, that is enabled by having an English speaking director.
Very many. So here's where I'll pat myself on the back as a director, right? So forget animator and everything. Like me having my knowledge of production, not just in Japan, but also America, the West, and obviously my English skills, enabled me to work with some people that not only haven't been on One Piece before, but really can't work in Japanese anime. That's not an insult at all for them. I'm saying like they're amazing as Western animators, but they just don't know the Japanese anime process, and they're not even people that try to work in anime at all. They're not even interested, right? But I could make the case, hey, I think you can do this. Like, do you want to give it a shot? Let me explain this, like, thing by thing, exactly how the process works. And so, yes, I was really unique and probably only for me at the moment. This will change in the future, I'm sure. But at the moment, there are certain people that I think like only could work with me as an episode director, period. And the staff and everyone was really appreciative of that, because it's pretty awesome to invite people that would otherwise never be able to work on a production to get them all involved in it. So I think I did that really well. Communication between international artists, and everyone knew what was happening. And when they didn't, and there were issues, I took the responsibility. I was like, okay, I'll jump on another Zoom call with you, or I'll have another meeting in-house at Toei and explain where the issue is. I mentioned last time, it was kind of like a dream as far as like international production. And what I meant was, a lot of places have tried this before. Like there's been international co-productions at tons of places, right? Crunchyroll has tried to make their own stuff. I don't want to name names, put people's names in my mouth, but Crunchyroll has tried to do their own international productions. Studio Piero made one of the seasons of what is it? Korra. Yes, that's right. And so and Production IG has done a whole bunch of Western franchises. There, a lot of anime studios have tried to actually get a whole bunch of international artists together working on an anime and tried to make it all work perfectly, right? And while the quality varies on all that stuff, there are some that are great, the Animatrix, for example, and then some that didn't work out so great. I won't name that because I'm not that out. But at the end of the day, from what I've heard of behind the scenes stuff, even on the stuff that looked good, it was very, very hard, right? To be honest, the international collaboration didn't work out very smoothly. Even if the project looked good, it was really rocky behind the scenes. And I kept saying to myself, as I heard all these stories through the years I've worked in Japanese anime, I kept saying to myself, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. Like, I know what you're doing wrong. I might be one of the only people in the world that know what you're doing wrong, but I see it. I see this person doesn't understand that in Japanese production, this person alters their keyframes at this point in the process. So when that happens, they get super upset, and then there's all this fighting. And the Japanese staff doesn't understand that this type of animator will not work if you alter this aspect of their sequences. So obviously the Japanese directors don't want to hear that. But if you're looking for, an in sync, well done international co-production. Perhaps if all of this is explained to everyone, at least everyone will be on the same page, right? And no one seems,
you know, where the compromises can be made.
Exactly. I know well, I don't know where everyone individually will compromise, but I at very least know the problem. And no one else seemed to be able to understand where the problem is. Like, they know something isn't going right, but then they go, oh, I guess it just, international stuff doesn't work. And I kept saying, no, you just don't know where the issue is. Someone just needs to tell you, and then I think it could work. And I tested that here. I used like so many artists that had no business working in anime, and then also asked a lot of the Japanese staff, please, relax on this rule. I know you don't like doing that, but just relax on this rule just for one moment, and then watch what happens with the sequence, right? And very thankfully, everyone kind of listened, right? And more often than not, almost entirely, it worked really, really well. And so that's what I mean by, like, I feel like this was like an international co-production that finally worked. Finally, everyone was kind of happy at the end of the process. Everyone had to give a little, and there are some artists that were frustrated at that or this on both sides, the Japanese and the international side. But that happened. At very least, they understand why the process was that way. And so no one at the end of this production, I literally don't think even one of the artists is confused as to why anything happened. Everyone knows why everything happened. And so everyone is content with understanding the process now. And what we made, I think, is really great. So I feel, as a director, incredibly accomplished that I could kind of bring that into existence, right? Even if the fans watching don't know that, a lot of the behind the scenes stuff and just things I was able to work out that have kind of never been worked out to this level, I'm proud of. Yeah.
And you have a unique perspective, not just because you're in the Japanese industry and you're an American, but also because you worked in the American animation industry. And
yeah,
so
exactly.
And we've talked about before in depth the differences between those two. So I guess generally, how easy was it for the international contributors to adapt to that process?
Person by person basis.
Yeah, I guess that's a
person
right
by person basis. But when the process is explained thoroughly to someone, this is also person to person basis, but I would say you'd be surprised at how much they get it right. They just needed it explained to them, right? Because it was so many people's very first time, there was some like no matter how much I explained it, I might still get a very Western style delivery from some people, which if it was a Japanese episode director, they would have had a heart attack and probably just thrown the sequence out because they couldn't use it because like the timesheet wasn't filled out right and everything, and the episode director would be like, I don't have time to kind of figure out what this person's intent was. But that's also where I can step in and very easily be like, well, I know what my friend's intent was and I know how to fill out a Japanese timesheet, so okay, I'm going to rewrite the timesheet and then maybe throw out a couple of these unnecessary keyframes. But then it'll all get working, right? But that's literally my job as episode director, to take what the animators give you, look at the timesheet and figure out if it's all working or not. But yeah, understanding the intent of the two mindsets, I was able to make corrections where it needed to be. There were still issues. Like if there's a Japanese production assistant listening to this right now thinking, oh, I'm going to do exactly what Henry does. Well, I of course, what is it? I support that. I support the big international productions and stuff. But just make sure you have someone who can do what I did on the staff, which is like, alter the international artists' timesheets and perhaps even keyframes to be able to fit the anime production process, right? If you have that, then you can do it, but just make sure you have what you need It still wasn't easy. It was still very difficult, but accomplishing difficult stuff is what's fun, not easy stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm champing at the bit to talk about the episodes. So Sam, do you wanna get us scene by scene, and then we'll throw to Henry for each of them?
All right. I think we're going to be mostly playing this by ear. I'm going to be given my usual anime recap, and Henry is free to interject where he likes.
Here's what I think. I'm going to let you just go through and just talk about everything. And then, because once I jump on and I start being like, let me tell you about this artist and that stuff, it's just, I'm going to be impossible to stop. So
I think I mentioned that to Sam before, and he said good.
All right, so I'm gonna literally shut up and let you just have at it. Even if you say something wrong, I'll just remember it. I'll be like, oh, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've done my best to write down some of the animator names, but it's certainly not going to be everyone.
You have to pronounce them all correctly, Sam.
That's impossible, even for me. Like, I apologize in advance. There's a bunch of international artists that I'm sure I'll mess up the pronunciation. Sorry, guys.
This is the anime recap for episode 1066. Here comes the main act, powerful techniques of shockwave and magnetism. And then I obviously I'm your host Sam, and we have our usual folks here. We have Zach, Steve,
we're all still
Ed,
here.
and Henry from before.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
So there is a cold open before we get to the proper title card. We have Kid having kind of received his walloping from Big Mom. He's all bloodied up. He's having memories of these very graphic black and white stills with like this kind of basic like parallaxing to the characters in the background. We have a child Kid.
I always dream in black and white when I'm.
We have Kid as a child, like tinkering with the toy or whatever he was making back then. Adult Kid in his squad. Luffy, Law, and Kid during the Sabaody days. That cherished memory where Eustace Kid crucified a man.
I was thinking that too. It's like, oh, this sentimental guy.
That was all. That was about that was entering the new world, I think.
I remember when that was.
Well, look, if it was when he was entering the new world, then it's okay. He crucified a village of people.
You're allowed to do that when you're exploring a new place.
Yeah.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't do that? Who amongst us? So.
We have Kid and Killer watching Caesar Clown's PowerPoint presentation.
Oh yeah, that one. I'm like that. Also cherished memory.
Doomed Alliance.
We have, the Kid Hawkins Apu alliance. Kaido landing to ruin the said alliance.
To be fair, Kid was probably lucky he got out of that alliance. It was not the best people to. Yeah.
Well, he did get thrown in prison.
Yeah, look, maybe not the best
lucky
way
he got
to
out
do
of
it.
that one.
Well.
What do you mean
Okay,
after he got his ass beat?
This whole saga is him getting out of that, right? Like it wasn't very simple. That's true. We're still in the midst of that process.
Can I ask a question, Henry? Is this scene supposed to? I guess this takes place in the current day toward.
Well, it ends up with Law saying, "Do it, Eustace." So it's like right before he attacks at the end.
I didn't know if this. Yeah, I didn't know.
It's like Bagger McGurk, Zach. It's
It's a
the
flash
end of the episode.
Okay. You did a home movies reference here that 3 people are going to get, but I'm one of them.
And I know at least 2 more. So,
please, Sam. Sorry. See, we interrupt anyway, Henry.
Yeah.
Kid and Luffy in prison, and then like one of Kid's like metallic pieces, the metal skull has its eyes like kind of slowly fill in with glow, and we hear like Big Mom's voice off, like not even quite in the distance, like it's like layered through like a wall or a piece of rubble or something, as she's like fighting Law.
that was really cool. I really like that perspective. That like jump. Also, the I don't know if this was on purpose, but the part with the mechanical parts sinking in for Kid really reminded me of the beginning of Zed, which is a kind of I love the hell out of that movie, but it did strike me.
I don't think I've ever seen Zed, so
a One Piece film.
Whoa!
Z.
Wait,
I think everyone pronounces Zed.
Yeah, okay, no, I did see Z.
The very intro, which is also why it stuck out to me, was the very beginning.
Wait, was that like I'll be honest, I haven't seen it in a while. Wasn't that like a Marvel movie-esque, like we're moving through like a mechanical thing or something? And maybe I'm totally wrong.
No. It's just like it's like a montage cut-ins with like close-ups of Zephyr like plugging his arm in and stuff.
It 100%
maybe it's subconsciously.
I 100% wasn't thinking that, but yeah, maybe subconscious.
Yeah, you could just say, yeah, totally homage.
Yeah.
It's like poetry. It rhymes.
Yeah. No, I thought I like that because that is one of my favorite, if not favorite, movie from One Piece. Maybe second favorite. Anyway, go ahead, Sam. Sorry.
And then we hit the title card, and we come back, and we've got Yamato is waving his club, trying to wave off the Kazenbo.
Kazen Bros,
which is just like
we're here for the.
Which is very eerily like lumen. Everything's very. We're staying in this very kind of dramatic, atmospheric place. And then we get like a long montage of Momonosuke's like still trying to lift up the island. Oh, he spends like a couple minutes just like kind of groaning, like.
Yeah. I mean, I felt really bad for the new voice actor.
And having flashbacks of emotional moments and all that Dragon Ball anime he watched.
Momonosuke loves Dragon Ball.
That voice, that voice actor actually. I only jump in because you mentioned the voice actor of Momonosuke. That voice actor was amazing. Like, and that voice actor is actually the voice of. If anyone watches Demon Slayer, I'm gonna mess up the guy's name, like Zenitsu or whatever. The blonde-haired character, the blonde-haired character of Demon Slayer has the same voice actor, and Momonosuke did an amazing job. Everyone was kind of sitting there like wowed by the performance. Like,
yeah. That is. I know probably the entire Dragon Ball voice actor alum are used to that, but.
So Henry, were you were involved with the voice recording as well?
Oh yes, episode directors are present. Are present for literally everything. I was there at every part of the process.
That's cool.
That I want to hear stories about, but I'm sure you can't.
I did not recognize this music, this song during the montage of Momonosuke.
Yeah,
basically just remembering like the samurai's point of view leading up to this point. We get a brief reminder of the Fire Festival because it's kind of like an important point of contrast for the fight. And then Momonosuke is, he's still grunting, still lifting the island, and then stops.
There's also the Luffy Kaido. Is the Luffy Kaido scene new? I'm trying to remember.
I'm gonna get to it.
Oh, I thought that was before. Sorry.
So Momonosuke stops when. He hears Zunisha basically, and he's like, "What's that?" We come back to. Oh, you're right, Zach. Luffy versus Kaido was earlier.
I have it playing in the background, just so.
Yeah, me
I was
too.
going to let you do your thing.
There is. We got Luffy versus Kaido punching each other, and like the blood sprays on the rocks were very Raging Bull.
I loved that. That whole scene was really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, it reminded me of Raging Bull with the blood kind of hitting the.
Someone took a screen cap. It might have been Henry, of the scene with like the silhouetted and just the eyes of Kaido, as Luffy was facing him. I believe. There, like this episode does have some really good stills, I think, and GIFs, always good GIFs, that come out of it. and I think you've done like that visceral Kaido in previous episodes too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how else. Demonic. I mean, he's always
Vincent Chansard.
Oh yeah,
had kind of made that originally, and I knew for that final shot of Luffy jumping at Kaido, I kind of didn't. I knew kind of in my head when I was envisioning it, I wanted Kaido to be totally a silhouette or just completely in shadow, so that it wasn't like the normal Luffy colors against normal Kaido colors at that composition, of them overlapping each other. So I wanted like Kaido to be totally dark. And so when I drew the layout, it was kind of more just a silhouette. But since Vincent had already made that crazy kind of silhouetted, like round-eyed version of Kaido, me and the cleanup artist, because I animated that whole scene originally. That whole Luffy versus Kaido scene was going to be just a straight up Henry animation set of sequences, because believe it or not, I actually haven't drawn Luffy versus Kaido. I storyboarded right when they clash at the very beginning, but even then my own personal animation was Law and Kid. And so this whole time I've worked on other people, Big Mom's Big Attack and Jinbei, right? But I've never actually worked on the Luffy versus Kaido clash. So I was like, I want to work on some Luffy versus Kaido. So I almost forced that scene into the episode just so that I could finally do my own little quick Luffy versus Kaido fight. And then
it fits.
And then I did. Oh no! I wouldn't have added it if I didn't think it fit. Like I thought I found an appropriate part, and if I couldn't find an appropriate part, I wouldn't do it. But I felt like that would be really cool. And then I animated the whole thing. But this time, unlike normally, there were a whole, like, I animated so many sequences. I animated like as many sequences as I did for 1017 way back in the day. But this time I was episode director, so I didn't have time to go back and do all my cleanups. So I passed the secondary key animation to an animator named Junie. And unlike normal, where the secondary key animator is just supposed to straight up clean up the keyframes, and then it just retains like my own animation style completely. I noticed that he liked to go in and kind of mess with the keyframes a little bit to make some extra secondary motion and a few little things work a little bit more in his style. But his style is great, so I was like, okay, go for it. These are my own sequences anyway, so I know like there won't be an animator that's irritated that you did it. I'm the animator. So at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know where you'd put the split, 60-40, a Henry cut, 70-30, something like that. But it's not 100% mine anymore. I got to give a bunch of credit to Junie. But so when we went to do the cleanups for that final one, we decided like, let's just basically straight up go with the design that Vincent, had all those episodes
it's really
ago.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All you, Sam.
So we come back to the performance floor, and we're continuing the Big Mom versus Kid and his punk cornadillo, and Law zips behind Kid, and he's like yelling at Kid, like, "Hey, you! This is like the second time now that we were both fighting, but you did the big final attack. Like you're the hero here or something." And then Kid's bragging about having an ace up his sleeve, and Law's like, "Well, what comes after a bull? A hippo or an elephant?" And then when he said elephant, he like looked at the camera and winked. It was weird.
You pulled a Jim from The Office.
If any character in One Piece could be Jim from The Office, it is 100% Law.
For sure. And then it cuts to Kid being interviewed. He's like, "Damn, how did he know?" It's like Kid was so inspired after the recent Nintendo Direct, and now he's got to What do you think?
I could actually,
By the way,
I could actually 100% see a scene like that happening in the future. Like they're all on the battlefield again, an elephant comes out, and then you just see like Law look over at Kid, and Kid's like, "Shut up, don't."
Just looks at the camera like.
I mean, that almost happened. Well, I'm not even gonna. I don't want to spoil. Although I guess we had a little in this episode. Is this the scene, Sam, where I noticed that? You know what? Go ahead, Sam. I'm gonna let you.
While the bickering Big Mom is getting up, and she's admiring her broken arm, I guess she's just kind of like wobbling it around, like, oh, it's so broken and bloody. Trafalgar's technique is real dangerous, and she's like kind of impressed by it. And then like Law like looks to Kid. Law basically does exactly what we were just saying. He just like looks to Kid. He kind of smirks, and the camera pulls out to like it's a close up on Law, and then it pulls out, and now it's an overhead shot on Kid and Law. And Kid's just like, I don't want to hear it. Shut up. And so yeah, Big Mom, she uses her own life force to turn her broken bones into homies.
They're so cute.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this to Henry too last week, but this chapter and more even the next one were really hard to follow in the manga, and I really the bone thing is a good example of something that was not in it that made it really much easier and more and more enjoyable, at least, to follow.
Or it's like just a tiny part of the page in the manga.
Yeah, the detail of her shaking her arm out and like swinging it around until it rebuilds itself is that was fun.
I think you just see the dialogue of the bones, and you as a reader have to infer that the bones are the ones speaking. So this
the close up X-ray on the bones, getting the cartoon Disney faces.
I legitimately think Oda is leaving more up to the anime folks. Like, they're like, you know what? They're doing such a damn good job. I'm just going to let them fill in these blanks here.
See, this is the stuff I wish he would include in the manga, though.
I know. Well, he's in a rush for some reason. I don't know. Or there's just too much in his brain and he can't get it all down.
I think
it's too much he wants to...
As a fan, I'd say I feel like it's more that. I mean, because... I don't think anyone's saying he's in a rush. He's in such a rush to finish this manga. Like, hey, slow down.
Being
a little
facetious,
bit.
yeah.
But no, but like, I think he just has a billion ideas. Like,
and now he's getting laser eye surgery as we speak. So now he'll be able to include these little tiny details, probably.
And so. Now that we're continuing the fight, Big Mom's talking about how, we've reigned for decades from when you guys were still drinking milk.
Although I like
cool.
I like the line that Steven. That's basically what Steven's line was, I think. Big Mom's allowed to say that.
We got this
cool 146 kids. Sorry, go ahead.
We're looking up at Kid on his bull, like kind of coming down on the camera, and kind of like there's a shot of him kind of like leaning forward and kind of letting the gravity give him his running start. So he's like zipping around her. He's like using his awakened powers to like tag a magnet symbol on her forehead. Like it's like north and south. Is that like positive and negative?
It's a poles, magnetic poles.
Magnetic poles. Yeah, that makes sense. So he like taps the south magnetism onto her forehead, and then like taps a north magnet thing on the wall behind her, so she gets magnetized to the wall. And then I like how like when she's like trying to pull herself off, like the way she like her elbows kind of like make her like into the square as she's like kind of wiggling the building that is now attached to her head off of the ground. And then, so she's Big Mom. Being tagged to a building does not slow her down that much. And we got Kid is like he's basically like skating around, like zipping between her legs through her dress and kind of like beating on her ankles to hurt her.
I think we mentioned this in the manga years ago, but it's amazing. And one of my favorite things about Big Mom is she's basically a kaiju, just like rampaging through Onigashima in this case, and it really feels like it in this fight.
And unlike Brooke, he restrains from making the panty jokes.
Yeah, Law is not immature like Brooke, the 90-year-old
or Kid.
That guy.
I'm sure Kid's immature in his
own
own
ways.
ways.
Kid going under the dress, which at that scale, it's almost like a circus tent at this point.
Just gonna leave this.
And then she's very huge. She's so much huger than him. Like grasping Law in her
Big Mom.
Her hand.
How big is Big Mom?
Okay.
And then Law's there too. He zips into the scene. He zips like right in front of her face and like stabs her through the head. And this is Vincent Chanzard as well. This impact frame here.
Vincent Chanzard animated the whole kid running in north and south thing, and Big Mom ripping the building, and then he also animated one additional sequence that linked a couple other animators' cuts where right after the slide between the legs shot, Kid throws all his junk at Big Mom, and that was Junghyun Jung Box. I'm not sure if I'm getting the pronunciation exactly. That was him, the whole running and sliding through the legs, and Big Mom falling, and then Kid throwing the junk. But then there's one sequence of Big Mom knocking all the stuff out of the way and getting hit in the face, like boom, 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 and doing like a spin attack, and then getting hit and then beginning to fall. That was Vincent Chanzard. That one sequence, which linked Junghyun's cuts and Mitchell Gonzalez's cuts, which was the whole next set.
Mitchell we've had on too, yeah. That I think one of my favorites scenes, or I don't know, images in this is speaking of kaiju Big Mom, is I don't know how to describe it other than the Heart Pirates looking up at Big Mom raging, and it looks literally like a dinosaur or Godzilla about to ruin the city, and love that. Sorry I keep harping on this. Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, and we've got I think we're at the bit where Law's using his room powers and he's zipping around, but it's rather than like watching Law move from different positions on the screen, it's the background that's moving. So it's like we're kind of anchored to Law as he's also kind of rotating around Big Mom and getting his hits in, and we are seeing her kind of dazed and like turning around trying to keep up.
Also super cool, I didn't notice the first time, now that I'm rewatching it, the flicking of the rocks to explain how he gets to each place.
Yeah,
is just super cool. I mean, we know that because we're so inundated by Law, but yeah, I will say, Henry, that one of the things I've heard most from our crew so far is this particular scene and how it was done and how innovative it looked.
I could talk about this scene then. So this was like, without going off too much on a rant, like I had mentioned last week that I wanted to give all the characters like amazing moments, right? I wanted the fans of these characters to all feel like love was given to their characters. So each character, I thought of a handful of things that like I could really give them, and both how to adapt the manga material and then also some anime original content, something maybe the fans would have wanted to see of this character. And so this was that moment for Law. Of course, his other material I wanted to adapt as good as possible too, but this was like his original kind of thing that I thought up. And I've been a big fan of Law. Of the three characters, like I've said in the past, like Law is probably the one I'm the biggest fan of naturally. I've become gigantic fans of all three of these after sitting with them for all these months, but just as an old time fan of just the series, Law was one of my favorite characters. And so that it was really easy for me to be like, well, what would be my dream to see this character do, right? Like, and as unique as his abilities are, I feel like because they're so unique and kind of difficult to show in a unique way, like in a really well animated way. Usually, all that happens is he just warps. He turns into lines and then appears in somewhere else when he's doing his teleportation within room. So. I just sat with it and I was like, what would be my dream sequence for Law? And, warping around Big Mom and slashing her a whole bunch of times came to me right away. But then even beyond that, I was like, how do we push this and make it something absolutely insane? And then I was like, well, this will be so freaking hard. And I can't even explain how to do this to an animator. Like, I wouldn't even know how to explain, like, do the warping but from his POV, right? It's like third person perspective because we're behind him, but still like from Law's perspective, what does this move look like? And it would be him reaching his arm back, beginning a swing, and then the world's location would change and he would finish the swing, right? And then to get away, he would just appear in a different part of the world, right? That's what's happening from his perspective. So that's crazy to even try to explain to someone. So I knew, I was like, I need to take responsibility for the scene entirely if I'm going to do this. And so that was my biggest and hardest sequence in the whole episode. I storyboarded it obviously, but then I also animated that whole sequence. It was
I forgot about that before I even complimented that scene. I forgot that you had been the one to do that.
I got some help with some of the cleanups of Big Mom in particular. Some animators posted some screenshots saying like they helped out with that, and I appreciate all the help. But that one, unlike the Junie cuts that I had mentioned earlier, that was just sheer straight ahead some help on some of the manpower, like the hours it would take to just clean up Big Mom. For all intents and purposes, because even when they finished, I took back their keyframes, brought them into Clip Studio and fixed them up even further. For all intents and purposes, that was animated and even mostly cleaned up by me. Law was 100% cleaned up by me. And yeah, that was the biggest, longest sequence, took the most time, and was actually the last to get finished. Very, very hard, but I'm glad people enjoyed it. I was actually a little worried when I finished it and saw how it turned out. It all kind of moved a bit slower than it appeared in my head. When Kinemon did his crazy slide in the black and white version, that was my in-house debut. He was moving really fast, and in my head, that's almost how it was looking. But like, I almost made the animation too smooth, and like I don't mean that as like. I guess I mean that as both like a pat on my back, like you made super smooth animation, Henry, but also as like almost a mess up because the way it was appearing in my head was a lot faster, and I was worried like the too smoothness of it would result in it not being as exciting. But everyone seems to love it online, so I guess mission accomplished.
Sam, what's next? Yeah.
And then kid gets his follow up in. He's got his big robo fist, and he's like, he gets to this. He's like bashing on Big Mom's face, and then he gets to this point where he's like jackhammering her face.
Yep.
just like repeatedly stabbing like this jutting out part of his palm.
Actually, real quick, all of those sequences were also animated by me. Kid jumping in, punching her twice, grabbing her head, and then smashing her head. Those I didn't have time to clean up myself, so those also Junie came in and cleaned up essentially how I had animated it, but added a little bit of secondary motion and stuff.
And now Big Mom needs to get serious. She readies up her mother's visit cannon. As it's translated, and it's 3,000 years of misery.
I love that title of that attack. Truly terrifying.
Your mother-in-law coming to visit for 3,000 years.
Ooh.
Misery.
Well, or maybe it's that it feels like 3,000 years.
Yeah.
And naturally, Hera, Prometheus, and Napoleon, their souls kind of combined to create this
Captain Planet.
this misery,
Captain Misery,
ghost lady. And we get this. It like I don't know if this was necessarily Henry's, but it did remind me of the Maser cannon that Henry animated earlier in the arc.
Yeah, there's two references to that. I mean, the only time the homies have ever really all worked together to transform into something bigger was the Maser cannon episode that I animated, and then 2 times in this episode where they make the Maser sword or the saber, Maser saber, and Misery, and I figured, since I'm on all of these scenes, I guess I'll keep the theme of kind of just how they all animate and work together. So yeah.
It's like this almost like they kind of like combine in this almost mechanical way, where they're kind of like rotating into each other.
It's
like Voltron for
in the Maser cannon scene. They actually say at the very end "Gattai," which is like when the giant robots all Gattai, when they all merge together, the arms and the legs and the Power Ranger like parts all come together, and so they don't say that for the other ones, but yeah, the theme had already been established from probably that Gattai line of dialogue, that the way that they do it is kind of like a giant robot all kind of merging together.
Yeah, and the motion just feels very like almost like we're within like a gun cylinder. Is
like a James Bond thing, right?
Feels to me, yeah. Or no, just like the 3D like motion of the camera, I guess is what I'm thinking. And we come to that's the eye catch of the episode. And we come back and not to be confused with.
Oh, I didn't know if I was muted or not. Not to be confused with the homages to the Dragon Ball Z.
Yes, I wanted to ask about that.
Oh, we just completely blew past that.
Yeah.
No, we're gonna. I assume we're gonna go back to that. Since Henry wants to do his.
I don't think I didn't notice like right away.
Oh,
I was like, I did
Dragon
like a
Ball
double take.
and Z, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
I think someone tried bringing it up earlier, and we got sidetracked in a different conversation.
All right, that doesn't sound like us.
I guess we'll put a pin on it. We'll pin it. We'll make sure we discuss it.
So we got this. We're watching a kid getting beat up by Misery. This is one of the names I saw on Twitter. Jeremy Pyers. The colors go crazy, and it's like just like kid getting punched and his head getting like reeled back in different directions.
But so after he takes this beating, that's where he is at the cold open of the episode.
Oh, I see. Or Henry, you could correct it.
Yeah. Well, after Misery's pummeling totally hits. So you're about to explain how law intervenes. After that, we get a sequence of all the wind blowing away, and then just a bloodied Kid standing there. We don't ever show Kid again until the very final sequence, and so in between that, right when we cut back, that's when Kid, walks over or crawls over to the alley and collapses and immediately starts putting the metal pieces together. So yeah, after the metal attack right after the Misery attack, that's the status of Kid at the beginning of the episode.
Yep.
I will say I did really, I don't know if appreciate's the right word, but I do love how Big Mom beats up on both Kid and Law to a bloody, like as far as they could get without dying, to show the. I'm gonna be
honest with you. This is maybe a rare like critique of One Piece. Don't get too mad at me, fans. But this is just my opinion. I think as much as I love Onigashima, I feel like and Wano Kuni and everything, I feel like one thing that's been lacking a little bit for multiple sagas even is really pushing the characters to the point where you think the main characters might lose, right? Like, oh no, I think my character lost. Maybe someone else will jump in, or Luffy will come in or something. And but it looks like it's a loss here. Damn, right? I love characters being pushed to that point. Like I feel like we had that in a bunch of parts in the series. Like when I think back to like Zoro's fight with Das Bones and stuff, like you get to the point where it's like, shoot, man, I don't know if he can do it, right? Like you just at least feel that way for a scene or two. And I love that. I love characters being pushed to the point where you're like, oh man, damn, I guess they did lose. Oh no, they didn't. They won, right? Like that turnaround I love. And so this fight in the manga already naturally kind of did that. So this fight actually is one of my favorite fights, probably in the whole manga, but certainly in the Wano Kuni saga, right? And Onigashima. But I was like, because I love that aspect of it, I want to push that to the absolute brink. And I actually think I may have pushed it too far, like in the sense that, you know, this is kind of a shonen show and not a seinen show, like an adult show. But so like this did air on Sunday morning, so I wonder if I like scared the hell out of some kids. But yeah, like I really wanted to push the, like, they are not like they have to earn this win from Big Mom. Like under any normal circumstance, they will lose this thing because that's how far she is pushing them.
I will say, speaking of like Das Bones and that point in the anime, Usopp breaking his nose with the Mr. Four Merry Christmas fight, that I still viscerally feel to this day. Like you are right. You don't see it quite as much. I think we're probably going to see it more in the future. I think Oda's been setting that up a little more, but yeah, no, it's good to see that expounded on. I thought that they need to earn this victory. Yeah.
And we get lots of different mooks reacting in kind of horror and awe. I think there's like a smattering of beast pirates and kid pirates and law pirates. And Big Mom's towering over us. It's looking like she's got the upper hand here. Doesn't seem like there's much anyone can do. She's bragging. It's like, everyone go destroy those punks. And then like the music cuts. And we like look up. And like the big house that like Big Mom was previously attached to is now like hovering over her head. And that's when Law uses his tact. And he points down, and the whole thing drops on her, and like her head like smushes to like to the form of the building as it pushes her out of frame.
I like when she looks up like that. She just kind of looks like like when sharks or like the cover the Jaws poster.
Jaws 2?
And
Law pulls out his K room. And it's like a made up
chrome. But
chrome
pronunciation of that is chrome.
Oh, it
chrome.
is.
It is chrome. Yes, it's
no. We had a lot of discussion at the time as to what the hell that meant.
Yeah, and I think it is literally just the word chrome. It's his chrome attack, but Odo is like, I got a cool spelling for this, which then confused the hell out of English speaking fans, because every one of us would have read it like K-room.
Welcome to the Kroom. I think we said Kroom tantric beats to study to or something like that. I think was the joke at the time. Yeah, it's an interesting choice.
And whatever this word is that is not exactly anesthesia. It's like
anesthetize.
I think it was something like that. Yeah.
Anesthetize, to numb.
I can't say it for the life of me.
Yeah.
Anesthesia. There's like two sisters.
Anesthesia.
Yeah.
Anesthesia.
It's cooler if you add things to the.
I'll
say Law should work on the verbiage of his attacks. But
as cool as he is, he doesn't make
as cool as he is
names.
Well, also like system. the last one here. I mean, I know what Oda's going for, but when you read it in English, it doesn't work quite as well. Yeah.
So yeah, he stabs her again with the pass through knife sword thing. He's like on top of her. He's like stabbing her like through the sternum, and the sword travels down through Onigashima, and like all the way down to like the homeland of Wano itself, and like into the ground, buries itself in.
I love how you can see it from the distance from the flower capital. No one notices it.
Yeah, I actually
Great shot.
love the
that
hell
shot.
out of that.
That's
yeah,
funny.
me too. The particularly, first of all, the music cut, right? If I recall, I love that. I love any time the music cuts. Usually, I love the scene with the two. I don't remember what they're called on top of the temple. The two fish. I thought was. I mean, I don't know if there was symbolism there with Momonosuke and Kaido, but it was really cool.
Ed, what is that? Is that the Mermaid Hotel from Epcot and Disney World? I forgot the name of that.
Yes, that's the name of it.
The dolphin, I think, is
The Dolphin, the Dolphin Hotel.
They're on top of actual castles in Japan. It's not just Disneyland.
No, I'm pretty sure the Walt Disney Corporation thought of it first.
Yeah, they were first.
They own everything, to be fair.
Now let us have this.
Including one of these scenes that we'll talk about probably.
So yeah, he's got her pinned to the ground and to the ground beneath the ground. And Big Mom is like trying to get him off of her. She's got her hockey fists and she's wailing on him, and now he's getting the beating animation that kid was getting earlier. And he withstands it, and he gives her the puncture of ville, and basically just shocks her.
Sorry, I was thinking of Puncture Willie that we made that shit. You punctured Willie.
good advice.
He punctured Big Mom with his willy.
No, I did not say that. He does say in the manga and in the anime, what is it? It has to go deeper with and I didn't want to say that.
When you pronounce it with a V in a German accent, it just rules the whole entendre out. So
yeah, I'm sorry with that. Damn.
And like the shot of the electricity going down the sword is now like more elaborate than the sword going down the first time. Like we're really passing through all the different like layers of Onigashima. It kind of feels like it's just like we're getting kind of like Punk Hazard vibes from some of these like more industrial areas inside, like especially when we're passing by. I like how we're passing by
sense.
Yamato
and
yeah.
Kazembo.
Yeah,
like we're.
Poor Yamato.
That scene's ongoing, like as this fight is happening, and we're just getting like this brief flash of like, oh yeah, they're over there.
Look, that moment might have been brief, but that was Kazembo 2D animated by Shida, right? Naotoshi Shida. So Kazembros, you're winning.
Kazembro winning. Kazembros are always winning, except next week. No spoilers. But go ahead.
The world's most loyal fan base, Kazembo fans. The electricity hits the ground, creates a big hole, just a big zappy explosion, creates a hole in Wano, creates a hole where Big Mom is. So I guess the geography is we're kind of fudging things a little bit because like the hole appears kind of like next to Big Mom.
I think she like moves out of the way, right? I'm trying to.
Well, like the hole's there, and then she's like wobbles, like almost like she's about to fall, and then she like grips and stops herself.
She's strong.
Yeah,
I say there.
You gotta imagine her arms were naturally kind of gripping the ground from the blast. And then Law zips off, and she just kind of like she's very lucky she didn't fall in. Let's put it that way. She just happens to have been grabbing on and leaning to the left and right, and then before she notices, whoa, what is this behind me?
I remember being very confused in the manga that she didn't fall in. Yeah.
And then now Misery is swooping in to attack Law. But Law, he knows what's going on. He's telepathically communicating with his fight partner here, and he's like, he's giving the signal to Kid basically, and Kid's like, hey, you don't tell me what to do. we have got this thing where we got to pretend like
we hate
we're
each other,
operating
remember?
independently here. Yeah. So Kid he's up above and he's readying up. He's using all the mechanical stuff that he's making the bowl with, and he's making the damned punk cannon. This big, long, a rectangular sniper blaster cannon thing. And then the Big Mom. This is where we get the. Is it Ole Loken? Ole Loken?
So this is. I'm sorry, Ole. I'm going to pronounce your name wrong, but he explained it to me. He's Norwegian, so Norwegian animator.
Mm-hmm.
And when we spoke, the pronunciation was like Uda, something like that.
Right.
Oh,
so I think if you're gonna try to say it right, it's something along the lines of Ula Loken. But Ole is how I guess it's pronounced in if you just read it in English. So I think saying Ole is probably.
We're Americans. We pronounce everything.
But apologies.
karaoke.
Karaoke. Yeah.
So this is Big Mom saying like, "Bring it on, you little punk," and getting the full mouth animation, the full face animation, the full Disney princess animation.
Wait, Big Mom's a Disney princess?
Disney villain.
I mean, more of a queen. Yeah, she's more of a
Ursula, an Ursula type.
I love this bit so much, and I think also maybe it was just like the colors too. But I like how Big Mom, she would blink, and like on certain words she would enunciate, her pupils got smaller. It's
perfect. I'll rant about this sequence.
The squash and stretch.
I'll rant about this sequence later. So stay tuned for a rant about this. Might as well.
I'm excited.
But
I just want to give it praise because it just felt like there was so much weight.
100% agree. 100% agree. It is incredible. Yeah.
It's gonna be a challenge to dub, I think.
Yeah, I thought that too.
Yeah, so I saw Henry. Oh no, I think someone, maybe it was Marianne.
Marianne?
Yeah, I think that's who it was. The voice of Flampe commented on that scene. It's like, oh, I feel bad for for who has to dub that. Writing that dialogue is going to be very difficult.
And Law and Kid are having their final say as Kid blasts Big Mom into oblivion. They're like, "This era that you guys reigned is over," and then we get the big purpley staticky blast that transitions into the to be continued card.
That was cool.
That was cool too. I love to be continued transitions, which we've been getting more of lately.
Yeah, we've been getting a lot, I think.
Yeah. And that's the and the to be continued came up, so I think we could say it's probably the end.
Uh-huh.
Henry, let's go through it again.
Obviously I could talk about this for literally days, so I'm not going to do that. But let me see what
we'll have you on another time to continue talking about it.
Some people might find that interesting, but like just hours upon hours. But
there are people who would definitely find that interesting.
The first I guess I do want to kind of set the record straight of who did what to an extent, because this episode I mentioned this on Twitter, but I'll mention it here obviously for people that didn't see it. This episode is a little hard to pinpoint for some sequences, not all by any means, but for some sequences it's a little hard to figure out who did what, because usually in anime someone will get like 10 or 20 sequences in a row, and it's just like this 30 seconds or this 1 minute is this animator, boom, put the name on it, you can put it up on the Sakuga websites and it's nice and easy. But for this one I really thought about who would be able to bring something to what. And so I wasn't just looking for animators to fill up sequences. I was looking for specific types of animators for specific types of moments. So for example, that Disney cut that we'll get to, I wanted somebody who can do outrageously good character acting for that one, right? Like this is Big Mom's final line of dialogue. It's final line of like powerful dialogue where she still thinks she's going to win, at least of the whole fight, right? And there's such a cool image of her face in the manga when she's saying this. So this one, so I need someone who can do that. I can't even if I got an amazing action animator, like that's not and even if that animator said, I'll take the whole last, set of sequences, I don't know if I would necessarily want that. Like I want specific things for specific moments. And so sometimes you have like this first scene, the whole kid and his flashback scenes, all the 2D animation is done by KU, an animator on Twitter who's super popular. You can find his stuff. And then all the illustrations were done by David Taco, an illustrator from France, and who I've worked with a bunch of times before, because he's the guy who did all the original comic book stuff for Teflon Funk, which is a series that I've helped do some animation work for and stuff. So even this very first sequence, you have two artists switching back and forth, KU sequence and then a David Taco illustration, and back and forth and back and forth. And
I love those illustrations too. And so I don't know if this was on purpose. I meant to ask this, I guess, while we were going through, but this and I guess in contrast to the upcoming episode, felt very kid centric. Like I know you said you wanted this to be a fan favorite, Big Mom, but this it felt very personal.
I think that Kid got the final sequence, right? That's just part of the story. And so when I was thinking about the best ways to handle the episode from a directorial standpoint, how to, as a director, I make something more interesting. How can this, the story told in this episode as a self-contained episode, if you think about it that way, be as good as it can be. I always loved the framing devices of stuff. Breaking Bad did it again and again and again, where they'd show a hint of the finale before and then you would see how it led there. Because I don't know how this exactly will play out for anime only fans, right? Who have no idea truly what's happening, but I hope it's as exciting as I think it is in my head, right? Like, because for their perspective, like they just saw the bull hit Big Mom, Puncornadillo, and then all of a sudden the next episode starts with this. So they should be like, what happened? What the heck? Oh, they're still fighting over there? Wait, what was that sequence, right? And then the episode continues. But then when you hear all the lines of dialogue, because in the first sequence, you clearly do hear Big Mom say, burn him to death, Misery. And then Misery says, yes, Mama. And then Law says, do it now, Eustace. So there's like a series of dialogues that happen right in a row. So then as you're watching the episode, at some point, it's Misery, burn. Yes, Mama. Do it, Eustace. And then I cut back to the exact same sequence that you see at the beginning here. So like for fans who truly don't know what's happening, I hope that was like a cool, like, oh shoot, we're back at that first scene. Wait, Kid was making something. What was it? And yeah, but then the two artists here, I just killed it. I knew David Taco would do an amazing job with the illustrations, but to be honest, he went above and beyond. I didn't know how much time he would have necessarily,
I would buy these,
but he did everything I had hoped for and 50% on top of that. Like they're incredible. I agree. Like they should be made into posters.
Yeah. They should be framed.
They literally should. Yeah. And so
especially the crucifixion one. I'm not buying that one, but the rest.
Well, it is interesting because Kid is an interesting character. I wish he really had appeared in the series more. The man, yeah. Kid has a lot of haters on Twitter. I don't know why he has.
I know.
I don't know. It's some sort of. Yeah, I think it's some sort of competitive sport.
It is a competitive sport. Kid for some reason has haters, and like they want to downplay him all the time. Like
I think it's because Kid has so many supporters that
maybe
people think only one character could be the most popular.
Well, I was so I'm gonna make a comparison here, which the Kid fans will love, but the Kid haters are gonna scream at me for. But like he doesn't have as much screen time, of course, but he kind of is in ways like the Vegeta to the Goku of like Luffy, in the not in the direct rival sense, I don't think, but just in the like he really does try his best. And but because of his personality, he keeps kind of losing. Like he keeps getting so close to winning, but like he's a rageaholic, and so he keeps just making some bad decisions. But he is kind of like that, and also though in the sense where he is a villain and has done horrible things. He was introduced as just an outright villain essentially, and the whole first set of sequences that we saw of him on the side, like crucifying villages, it clearly made him to be a terrible person in some ways. But he always just finds himself on the right side of the fights. You know, that's also like Vegeta. Like he's a bad guy. He's a terrible person. But you know what? At the end, he's fighting for justice. So like it might have been just by accident, but he is right at the end of every turn. And so going through though and kind of finding all of Kid's scenes, which there were not many of earlier on. Was kind of fun, and then getting this new updated illustration of those scenes.
The kid as a kid one, wow, okay, the kid as a kid one from the SBS was super cool to see here. I love that.
First time that character designs actually ever appeared in the TV series.
Wow. It
was in the sketch in the like quest Q&A section of the manga, and then it appeared
the end of Zed
at the end of that film as like one drawing or whatever. But in the TV series, it's never been here. So
no, with the background and everything, this is super cool. I like it a lot.
So then the episode starts, and the first whole set of sequence. The running, like the metal on the ground being scraped of Damned Punk in silhouette, that sequence, and then later on at the beginning of the Misery sequence when the arm reaches back and hits and zooms up to the guy's face. They're very random, but those random sequences were animated by Remy Clark, an American animator. Kind of random sporadic sequences in the episode, but just so that the Sakuga websites get it right, that one sequence at the beginning was done by him.
We are here to help those sites. 99%.
Then the whole first Yamato scene with Kazembo. Fun fact, Kazembo has 3 sequences in the episode that are done in 3D, and then all the rest are 2D. And that is the only 3D in the entire episode. 0 3D for Momonosuke.
That sounds like a Henry Thurlow.
That is 100% a Henry Thurlow decision. Like, yeah. No 3D for Momonosuke at all. No 3D for anything that Kid made or makes or does. But
that's...
That's
brave is the word.
You use the word brave. I literally had one of the main production managers and producers come up to me and say, like, you are insane. Like the word insane, like you're insane. Like, why would you even do that? Like, but I was, and I can't deny it. Like, it's true. Like I am insane. But
say the same about Oda for drawing that design in the first place.
But there are a few. But I think the 3D Kazembo is actually very good and really is kind of seamless with the 2D one, because it does switch back and forth, believe it or not, between 2D and 3D, and I don't think it's very easy to see. And this set of sequences was actually done by my old studio, De Art, with the exception of Yamato hitting Kazembo. There's one sequence of like hit with the club. That was also done by KU, who did the first opening with Kid. But all the other sequences of Yamato here and the zoom and Kazembo zooming into the screen and pulling out and seeing the sky outside the transition. That was all done by Day Art and their artists. Momonosuke's entire scene was done by yours truly, 100%. With the exception of there's one sequence that's really far pulled out, and you see the Onigashima sliding to the left or right. That's used twice. Day Art Stadio also did that one, and like one background shot of like the back of Onigashima leading up to the flower capital. But for all intents and purposes, all of the Onigashima shots and all of the Momonosuke shots were animated by me. And the reason for that is because like I know one question people have is like, Henry, why would you take the just normal old Momonosuke shots, right? Like, you know, couldn't you focused on something else? But I gave the hint for what episode I was working on earlier, and I was like, I'm drawing a dragon, and people kept assuming, you know, it was Kaido or something, right? Obviously, like,
to be fair, there's a lot of dragons.
There is a lot of dragons. It's true, a lot of dragon attacks and stuff. But I meant Momonosuke, and the reason is because I knew I could find people who would give the love and attention to amazing action sequences of, you know, Law and Kid versus Big Mom, right? But I wasn't confident that I could find someone to give like real love to these sequences, like, and make them like amazing looking Momonosuke sequences. But I like drawing dragons, and I think I can do it pretty good. And so I was that
was the first thing you drew, right, for One Piece, and also generally.
No, because the first thing I drew for One Piece was the sumo match, and then after that, but the second one, yeah, was Kai. What was it? 9.
That's what I was thinking of.
913, I think.
It was in the early 9s, believe it or not.
But yeah. So so if I did it and I took full responsibility for it, then I could be sure that even the Momonosuke sequences would look really cool. And, you know, one thing that I tried to take from like an Ishitani episode, right? Like influence from that is there's no sequences that should be sacrificed, right? Sometimes even the great episodes where people are, you know, ranting and raving about, if you really go through, there's like 3 minutes somewhere where it's like it doesn't really look good, but everyone just ignores that because let's go over here to the great part. And that's okay. Obviously, that's another way to do it. But I love the I don't know, just trying to make sure there isn't one single, you know, scene that was given up on. You know, I like that way of thinking. And so I was like, yeah, all right, like, you know, if we're gonna show Momonosuke, let's make it the best freaking Momonosuke scene I possibly can. And so I drew all of that. Momonosuke, I explained earlier, I did the whole Luffy fight, but Junie cleaned it up. Momonosuke, I also was the assistant animation director on, which is a credit I've also never gotten. I'm not really calling too much attention to that credit because of obviously the whole director credit. Like that's what I'm, you know, telling everyone. But I also got an assistant animation director credit for this one because of the Momonosuke sequences. There was almost like 40 cuts of Momonosuke, or a whole lot at least, 30, 38 or something. And basically Momonosuke went uncorrected. The flames and the clouds, Kitazaki-san, the animation director, changed a little bit, but like Momonosuke's face and body and the composition and everything is just my drawing, just straight up. And so yeah, like I got that credit because like I take responsibility for how Momonosuke looks in all of his sequences. And in like Onigashima cracking and falling and the clouds moving around Onigashima and stuff, all of that section. Then you have the Dragon Ball flashback. I'm going to go more into at the very end. When I get to the end of the episode, there's a couple final comments I want to make about like pacing and thought process of why I added some stuff. So I'll explain kind of how I came to the thought process of the Dragon Ball Z thing in a little bit. But like as far as who made it, this is another sequence where like it's divided between a bunch of people. What is it? Rianti, my friend Rianti, did the layouts, and she also did the layouts for all of the Hana no Miyako, the flower capital, images in this whole Momonosuke section. But then I added some additional animation, like the run of Hiyori back to Oden, and then Oden picking her up. That was all animated by me, but then it was all cleaned up by our friend Rajan. So that it's like 3 people kind of made this sequence. But yeah, Dragon Ball homage. I am a big Dragon Ball Z fan from back in the day. I saw a moment I could use it, and I'm sure in my entire life, you know, you can't just like willy-nilly add homages from super famous franchises, but I'm literally at Toei Animation, so I'm right at the one place where I'm allowed to, you know.
Were they happy about? Did they? Well, I'm assuming they noticed.
Yeah, 100%. Totally fine. Okay. I mean, the like the biggest of the chief directors of the whole series, Nagamine-san, is the like director for the Broly movie, right? And so like we're all connected, or there's like staff members that are deeply connected with the Dragon Ball franchise. So yes, everyone noticed right away, but everyone was like more than happy.
I'm sure
to keep that going.
Cool. Yeah.
What was the reaction to that choice? Was like someone like the people above you in Toei were like, yes.
A few people kind of gave me a smile and stuff. Although I have to say, like, not as much reaction as I would have expected. Kind of just like I saw what you did there. Done. Like, so yeah, I thought it would be a bigger like, oh my god, like, can you believe Henry did this? But everyone's like, yeah, I can believe it. All right, moving along.
I think the internet's been responding closer to that.
They're just like nerd. Anyway,
probably no, like definitely like this otaku right here, right? Like no doubt. Yeah. So then we finally get to the fight, right? And the whole first set of sequences is done by Imi, who has been amazing on the One Piece series recently. That's the whole bull crashing Big Mom into the building. Then there's a whole bunch of sequences of everyone reacting, like Kid-in-Law looking down, and Kaido henchman, assessing the situation. A lot of this was done by so a few different people did this. Dayart did a bunch of them again, including Rajan, who's the character designer there. So Rajan did a few of these also, as well as the other Dayart members. And then some of the shots of like the heads turning and then Big Mom standing up was done by Tonari Animation, Jarrett Martin. And the character acting of like Kid warping, Law warping on top of Punk Cornadillo, walking over to Kid, and then their like first big long dialogue shot of them yapping back and forth at each other. That was done by Glass. So it's kind of chopped up in this whole set of sequences. If people want to post screenshots of the exact sequences they did, that would probably be best for those Sakuga sites, because I'm not going to go sequence by sequence. But yeah, it kind of jumps around between those 3. Dayart did the first part though, and then after that it's kind of back and forth between Jarrett Martin and Glass. And then the arms busted, the whole arm busted and standing up, that's still Jarrett Martin's shot. The Law grabbing the sword and then giving that smile to Kid, that's Kofi, an animator Kofi, who I met in Japan. Actually, he was visiting Japan. I won't. Yeah. He.
No, I know who he is. So
you know him? Yeah.
Yeah, acquaintance of mine. I was surprised to see that.
So
I was like, oh no shit.
I met him when he was visiting Japan, and he's really good. So I gave him a whole bunch of actually kind of important stuff on this episode. These two sequences were kind of lingering sequences that I was looking for someone good to take at the end when I was realizing what still wasn't reserved, and that's why he got these kind of random two shots of the sword being grabbed and then this character acting moment. His main sequences later on, but yeah, there were a few times where I had some lingering shots, and then an animator stepped up and took it.
I will say the character acting I did notice and I thought was really good throughout, but in that scene in particular. So I'll shout out to your acquaintance, Steve.
Big Mom making the orb, healing the bones, and then doing the crazy spin with the arm to connect all the bones together and scream, and then the character acting shot right after that, which is also another long shot where Law and Kid talk back and forth. That was all done by Levant, who I mentioned earlier. Did a great job. A lot of these people are all and moving forward are, as I mentioned, like first timers for Japanese anime. They're obviously incredibly professional, very skilled animators, but it was interesting because yeah, they a lot of them, as good as their work turned out, believe it or not, at the beginning of the process were quite unfamiliar with the process, but we still got it to this point. Prometheus and everyone transforming, Prometheus, Napoleon, and Hera. That's me. I did this one individual sequence. I had done the Maser cannon sequence, so I was like, I might as well, like, rather than sit and even explain how they move, I'm just going to give them their exact same movements from 33. And so yeah, I did this one sequence of them while transforming into their bigger forms. Then we have a Japanese animator, Arai Jun, who is amazing. His motion is very like old-timey, like mecha kind of stuff, almost like a Gainax kind of feel. And so that for Punk Cornadillo, a whole bunch of shots of Punk Cornadillo and explosions, I think is really cool. And his sequences link right into Vincent Chansard's sequences, where Kid runs down and puts the S in the N and everything like that. As always, Vincent is absolutely just freaking insane. Best of the best. What can you say? What can you say? Like, that's it. It looks awesome. And
he is great.
Yeah. And there's an amazing control of volume and everything. Right when the building turns around, Big Mom turns around, there's suddenly this sequence of all these explosions, right? And you just see billows of smoke all rushing out as the building crashes. I hired basically two effects animators, Hussein Ontoro and Jose, just want to double check the Reboletto. Jose Reboletto. And those two took all of the effects shots. There's a whole bunch of shots that come up throughout the episode where all of a sudden there's crazy effects and smoke bellowing everywhere. And so their sequences are scattered throughout the episode, but I wanted specific people who could handle this kind of smoke motion to handle the smoke shots as opposed to normal animators. Vincent for the next few shots of like the skull falling and Big Mom standing there. Then it goes to Jung Box, who, or Jung Boy, I'm sure I'm messing up that pronunciation, but an associate or a friend of Vincent's actually, who's introduced to me. And he does all of Kid zipping around shots, one more shot of Vincent, like I mentioned earlier, and then Mitchell Gonzalez for the whole opening set of my original action scene, right? In between Big Mom ripping the building out of the wall and her making Misery is all like just an original anime action scene that I thought of. And that was handled by Vincent, Junghyun, Mitchell, me, because Mitchell's shot ends with the flicking, and then my shot is the whole warping sequence, and then Kid jumping in and punching and everything. And then it ends with Emi one more time. Emi does the Big Mom punching the two characters out of the way, which brings us to Big Mom standing up and giving that crazy scary face, right, to create Misery. And that was done by all actually, and then the homies all swirl together and Misery comes out. This sequence was done by two animators who also have no experience in the anime industry, Santosh Moses and let me get the, I know it was
I'll say while you're getting
Vincent, yeah, go for it.
No, it was that it was also a standout. Well, there were a lot of standout, I guess is what I'm saying. But no, that was a really, it brought home the frightening visage of a mother visiting.
Another Vincent. So yeah, the homies all merging together, and then Miseries was Vincent. I want to get the Pistian. Sorry, I might be messing up the pronunciation there, but yeah, those two killed it. Looks awesome. And then we are on to part B. And the first set of sequences of Misery dashing are Hiroki Itai, a Japanese animator who I'm familiar with from my time at Day Art, who's like best of the best, Sakon animation director level, freaking ridiculous. That leads into more Junghyun's cuts. Hiroki Itai just did the first three of Misery dashing forward, and then Junghyun did the punching and crazy impact frames of Misery.
I love the different coloring in it's very cool.
Jeremy Pierce did, as you mentioned, the crazy amazing shot of Kid getting whacked all around, as well as Law getting whacked all around, and the color schemes constantly changing. Then we have another kind of section where it jumps from a lot of people, but here was the section where I could invite like special guests, right, and friends on, because these are like random characters getting blasted out of the way. And so I worked on Super Jail, as everyone here knows because I've mentioned it a bunch of times, but so connections from back then I was able to kind of invite on, even though they're not familiar with the anime process. So Remy Clark did the first few sequences of the arm being reached back, but then it goes the very first sequence of everyone getting blasted was actually done by Augenblick Studios, who is the studio behind Super Jail season 1, right? So I contacted them, and one of their animators, Katie Wendt, I think is how it's pronounced, did the very first sequence. The following couple sequences are done by my friend Lizzie Akana, who I worked on Super Jail season 1 with. Then Ian Jones Cordy, who you guys know, right?
Yeah. What a surprise. It was really cool to hear.
He did the sequence of the samurai, as well as the sequence of the fist coming in and punching Kid. There's a couple other sequences of random guys being thrown around. Those are animated by Chris Conforti, who's another animator friend of mine who worked on Super Jail season 1. So yeah, that was like the whole guest animators from the West who kind of have no business working on anime, to be honest, but I was more
get them in more.
I know, I loved it. So cool. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
They did a great job. Yeah, couldn't be happier. You know, it's also a smart move though, because you know, if this was passed to anybody, any random person, they would probably decide these shots of random characters getting blasted isn't super important, so I'm not going to put my A game on that, right? But when you invite people who are thankful to just be a part of it, then you get their A game, even for these sequences, right? So again, thinking, every sequence counts. I don't want even the sequences of random guys being blasted to not look good. I want it to look great. I want someone to have brought their A game and put love into it, right? And so I feel like I got that from each of the sequences. Everyone had a lot of fun. Rajan did a couple more shots. Oh yeah, Misery punching in the distance. My friend Rajan, Rajan Dubois, the character designer at Day Art, and pretty popular illustrator online. Usually I give him still shots because he's an amazing illustrator. He also did the next set of Onigashim of Hana no Miyako, the flower capital illustrations, like the top of the roof you were saying earlier with that was laid out by Rajan. He's a great illustrator, but I wanted to kind of test how his animation was, and I think he wanted an animation sequence too, so I gave him this one of Misery punching in the distance, and it turned out awesome. He's apparently an amazing animator too, completely confirmed with this sequence. So now in the future I want to give him more animation shots. Then the two shots of Big Mom are ST, and the reason I'm wrote that is because it's a friend of mine, but who works for a studio where he can't work on other stuff. So we'll just write his name as ST for now. Then Jose again came back for full animation for Misery's zoom back and Misery's crazy maniacal face. Jose is a crazy good effects animator, but also clearly does character stuff amazing. Then after that, there's a whole bunch of sequences of like Kid being burned, Misery kind of about to attack Kid, and then the whole building appearing above Big Mom. And that was done by Eddie Mihong's studio. Ishel, I guess, is the name of the studio. I've known Eddie for a while. I originally kind of wanted him personally on the episode, but he's got this studio, so it went to one of his animators, Jerome. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name. I'm going to mess it up. But Jerome is in the credits there. And again, I believe like an anime or certainly One Piece first timer. Kofi then also did Law pointing down and smiling. And then
that was, I like that one too.
And then the whole next set of sequences with the whole area crashing and everything exploding out. I actually drew the layouts for all of that. So all the buildings hitting the ground and Misery getting thrown out of the way. That was all me, but I then passed that on to the effects animators, Hussein and Jose, who I mentioned earlier, and they did all of the smoke. So, I mean, it's totally their sequences because my layout was much simpler than obviously their massive amounts of effects animation. But yeah, we kind of worked together to make all of that happen. And that goes all the way through Kid kind of leaning forward in his final shot. Law jumping up into the air was handled by a Chinese studio. And they're the only ones who I kind of don't have their names, but they're in the credits. And that was Law swooping down and stabbing and everything. With the exception of Big Mom, was Jeff Liu, who maybe some of you know also. I know he's like he's also big in American animation. He did a couple shots of like Big Mom pushing the rocks out of the way and then looking up, and it has really good character animation. Dorian did the part where an animator named Dorian did the part where the stab comes in, which leads into Sheeta's first part that he did. Sheeta did a handful of sequence where the sword swooshes down and stabs the ground. then there's this one shot of Big Mom's face, and she looks down and really angry, and that was done by Rangel, an animator. Rangel. For all the last names, you can look at the credits, but yeah, Rangel did that sequence, which leads into Jocelyn Charles's set of sequences, which are freaking awesome. I don't see these getting shared around as much online as I think they should, because Big Mom pummeling Law like this, like his understanding of like mass and just volume control is freaking unbelievable. I could never do this. This is so crazy. Yeah, go for it. What's up?
I was just gonna say, I forget how big Big Mom is. Although this episode, I think, really brings the gravity of it. But I felt that. I think I mentioned the visceral feeling behind Kid and Law getting beaten up in this episode, and that was one of the scenes I was referring to.
There's a few sequences of like the background characters of Law's crew shouting. That's Dayart again. And then the whole Jocelyn Charles shot of Law getting pummeled leads into Sheeta's big moment, which is Puncture Vitae. That all happens. The explosion happens. We're in the flower capital. And that's all Rajan's shots again. Then there's a set of Momonosuke sequences, which are all done by me. When we cut back, we have a few sequences done by Kofi. Kofi did the first few of Law warping, and then it was with the one shot of Yamato looking up at the hole that was made. That was also done by the illustrator David Taco, who did all those crazy illustrations at the beginning. I handed him one sequence that was like a normal shot. But all the others were done. This was Kofi's big moment. Kofi's big moment was Big Mom rolling in the hole, pointing at Law, and then Misery appearing behind Law. And he killed it. It's so good. It's absolutely fantastic. Kofi did the Law shouting. Kofi did the Law shouting. Sorry. Keika. Sorry, I messed up with the names Keika and Kofi. I got confused. Keika did Law warping at the very beginning. Then it was Kofi's big moment with all the character acting. Keika also did the shout of Law back to Kofi for the Kid jumping up into the air and the shot of Kid's face being kind of hidden. Keika for Law's smile, although some corrections by me, to be fair, on that one. And then my second biggest shot of the episode next to the Law shot, which was the big Damned Punk reveal. So all the zooming around Damned Punk and all the shininess on the metal and everything, that was me. Leading into Keika again for like the Big Mom's face and the zoom back of the Damned Punk. Ole or Ula for the Disney shot, which I'll talk about in a second. Keika for the Damned Punk shots blasting. Masayuki Koda for Law shouting his final line of dialogue. I'll mention the significance of that in a second too. And then Rangel again for Big Mom falling in the hole. And then the final three shots, the big establishing shot where there's like you see everything happening, that was done by a bunch of people. Rajan laid out the shot, I did the character acting, and then Jose did all the effects animation, and then the final two shots were done by me of Big Mom and Kid screaming. Okay, so sorry, I just got that big long giant list out of the way. Hopefully the Sakuga sites can go through slowly what I just said. I'm sure that was super boring for people who don't care about that stuff, but I'm sure it's super interesting for those who do. So hopefully that was okay.
I think it, as the non-Sakuga fan, it is interesting to see who does what and to try and tie in the style and also see which ones I subjectively like.
Yeah. Well, so okay, we're done with just the listing of names, so we can go back to a more normal conversation.
Yeah.
But actually, the reason that the I had to do that right now, and it took so long, is because this was handled differently than normal. Again, normally it would be like sequences that person, 20 sequences that person. My list is super short after I go through 10 people or something like that, right? But this was handled in kind of a unique way to be able to get guest animators and people who can specialize in certain types of things versus other things, right? And it was a lot of work, really hard. I mean, you can't do this all the time. This is a very hard thing to kind of hold together. But if you can, I think the end result kind of speaks for itself when you pass the appropriate thing to the appropriate people. So a few just general comments then before I take questions from you guys. Masayuki Koda is the craziest name on this list. Of all the people are not appreciating this. Like, this should go viral, essentially. Masayuki Koda did Law's Final Scream. Masayuki Koda is the director of the Boruto series. He is like one of Studio Pierrot's top artists, and it is insane that he's working on One Piece and a Toei show, which, because he never does a non-Pierrot show. Well, because I know him. I know him personally. Like, I know him personally, like on a like a I don't know if you want to say like personal friend level, but like we're really cool. Like, we've worked together on a whole lot of stuff. And so I reached out to a whole lot of people, including some like famous animators, but they understandably were like, I'm super sorry, Henry, I'm busy at the moment. No, understandable. I expect, but shockingly, Koda-san said, I'll give you a couple shots. I like One Piece. I like Law. And so, man, it's just, it's so cool. Like, fans online will bicker about what series is better and everything, but behind the scenes, the creators all love everything and like helping out on each other's projects. And this is a perfect example of that.
Great.
Yeah. So on to Ole's shot. I'll pronounce his name Ole for now. The Disney shot. This is my favorite sequence in the whole episode, and it's not just because it's animated so well. That's obviously the biggest part of it, but I'm going to throw out a sudden, very strange name now. Eminem. Why am I bringing up Eminem? Eminem has this video that has gone viral a whole bunch of times where, like, he says, I think most people have probably seen it. Like, it's people told him he couldn't rhyme the word orange. Like there are certain rules in his industry, the rap industry in his case, and like one thing you can't do is rhyme the word orange. See, there's some things that are just not doable. So the point of people always telling him that, I guess, was like, you have to just realize that there are limitations to what is and is not doable. And that pissed him off, right? And so he figured out a way to rhyme orange, and it was rhyming on syllables. So it wasn't rhyming orange with a word, but it was like orange and then a couple words later, door hinge, right? And door hinge, and the way the words flowed together rhymed with orange. So he look up the video. It is very interesting. The reason I bring that up is everyone had always told me, I've heard the story many times in the anime industry here, even though internationally, like, everyone's skilled and everyone respects each other, everyone can't work together necessarily. This is what the lesson I was taught is, right? So one type of person that the anime industry can't work with, it's oil and water, are the truly Western feature film animators, the Disney animators. Ole is a freelancer for Western feature films like Klaus, and he worked literally on I think Disney's Enchanted, or Disney's something, or something like Enchanted. There was like a half live action, half 2D film like that. So the point is, he does literally like Disney Western feature films. And the reason that the anime industry, I was told, can't work with them is because, like, for a handful of reasons. Number one, they don't want their stuff corrected, and number two, they won't clean up their own stuff because that's not part of the normal process in the West. And also they move to fully animate stuff. So every single frame can't be a key frame, especially for sequences that don't require that much motion. It's one thing if the character's running and jumping off of a building. Okay, you understand you need to use hundreds of frames for that potentially. But who is going to want to spend the time and effort and guess the money that is necessary to draw hundreds of frames for an expression change? It's oil and water to the Japanese anime industry. You can't do it. Give it up. And that has always pissed me off. That is my telling me you can't rhyme orange.
It's your orange.
It is. And so this one sequence, it was only one sequence, but this is me proving you're all freaking wrong. I knew you were wrong, and you're wrong. For maybe the first time ever, one of those types of very specific animators got to work on a Japanese anime. I'd heard stories in the past of occasionally some of those types of animators trying to work on a Japanese anime, and it went really bad. Like once the animation director's corrections came in, there was a fight, it didn't work out, et cetera, et cetera. But I was like, if I'm here to intervene at every part in the process, I think I can do it, even if it's just for one sequence. And we did it. Like, we freaking did it. This sequence is the maybe biggest accomplishment of my life. Like, I didn't even animate it. I did clean up on it. I helped clean up a whole lot of the stuff later on to make sure it was pristine. But it's not my animation. It's Ole's animation, 100%. It's not even my animation, but it's still my biggest accomplishment, because this is me proving something that can be done that no one thought could be done. Fans who casually are watching the episode will probably think, oh, this is just a cool sequence or something like that. But I think within the industry, Japanese animation industry in particular, there are a lot of people watching this now and saying, how the F did Henry do that? How? That's impossible. You can't work with, you're not supposed to be able to work with this specific type of animator. But I did. I can't be more thankful for Ole for sticking with the process, and more thankful for the team at Toei for, also a little give and take for how the process would work. But at the end of the day, we did it. And this, because of the difficulties and because of just everyone's attitude about how much this couldn't be done, this is my favorite sequence of the episode. Super proud to have this in the episode.
I'll say Ole also posted that it was his number one tweet was the fact that he submitted something for One Piece. And I'm sure a ton of followers from his are probably like, oh, when are you doing more One Piece?
Well, yeah, I don't know about that. Like, that's this is a crazy undertaking. People do this is until now, people have said in this industry that this is impossible. So I've proved it's not, but don't expect it to pop up casually.
No, this is truly, I don't think you understated it at all. Amazing that this has happened. Sam, sorry.
It's just, if I have my timeline right, I believe it was Ole teasing that he was working on One Piece that spawned a bunch of rumors that Looney Tunes WB animators were going to do Gear 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, we love a rumor.
That was his crash course in how social media,
the internet,
and the internet works. I've been there a bunch of times, and you post one thing innocently, but then if the fan base or the media in some way just attaches himself to it, just back up, and that's when you unplug. That's when even I unplug. I'm like, I'm not going to pay attention to their madness. But yeah, in his resume, it's got the freelancing for Disney and Warner Brothers feature film stuff. So the recent Space Jam, I believe he worked on. So yeah, when you look at his resume, it's all stuff like that. So people saw that, they said, oh my God, WB feature film level person. It must be, Gear Vid, and
to be fair, I thought so too.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh wow, Henry got him, and Ian, and wow. I also looked up Jeff Liu while you were doing that, and was also OKKO, Steven Universe, Craig of the Creek.
Yeah.
So familiar. Yeah.
That's a really good. He did a really good character animation shot. When Big Mom actually pushes those stones out of the way, I really like that sequence. There's so many individual sequences I really like.
Just I guess the main things that like I always have been curious about, and I guess like from a director standpoint, this is where I'm probably going to get the most satisfying answers I can get. From the director's point of view, what is the like screenwriting process, like assigning a screenwriter and getting a script prepared, like, you know, that I assume the storyboard artists then work off of?
I don't know. I don't know. Just yeah, sorry. I mean, I think that is my answer for that, but just because like One Piece is already an established thing. So if you're talking about a big giant established franchise, then I'm sure the process is already in place. Like even if that's where I wouldn't be able to go into anyway. I'm not going to comment about scripts and stuff.
I guess but you're handed.
Oh, go ahead.
A text script that somebody else has laid out for you.
So okay. The way the story that would actually be a storyboard question then. The way storyboarding works in Japanese anime, and this could be different for different productions. In fact, I'm sure it probably is. But for in my experience, like Japanese anime storyboarding is you're handed text. Japanese text, by the way, for people interested in the job. And you see what's going to happen in your episode or your movie or whatever it is. Like, and then you start with a blank page. The storyboard artist's job is absolutely massive. That's why usually I had mentioned previously also, like, the storyboard artist is usually the director. Because the storyboard artist is going to put so much of an investment in how things look and how things work out and how things are structured, that usually I think that person just wants to see the whole project through to its completion. And so that's why it's appropriate for the storyboard artist to be the director, the episode director, at least. Because you have nothing except a quick explanation of, hey, this is going to happen, and then you have to envision like a movie, like a film in your mind. So where do I start? Where's the first place the camera is? Like what happens in the first scene? What happens in the second scene? How do I connect these things? And so actually that does kind of lead into what or at least an important part of what I wanted to mention about pacing and stuff. So I wanted to 100% make sure the key moments were done right. Like, as a fan and knowing what fans want, I can't let you down when it comes to puncture vide, right? I can't let you down when it comes to damned punks reveal. I can't let you down when it comes to the Big Mom getting stuck to the wall. There's like a couple moments where under no circumstance can I let people down at all, and I would consider it a massive failure if I took something that was like A+ material and then it ended up not being A+ or beyond in the final, right? So I went right to those, and I was like, I'm gonna time this, and I'm gonna pace this, and I'm gonna get these camera angles as perfect as I can possibly make it, so that and then what I'll have chunks of the episode done, right? That's my own process. I'm sure everyone has their own process, but mine is, under no circumstance will I let this or this part be bad. And also I was like chomping at the bits to make an anime original action scene with all these characters I loved. So that was also one I went right at the beginning. And I, very early in the process, one of the first things I thought up, even though it was one of the more difficult ones, was like law zipping around, right? Because I had to get those moments right. And so once I had those moments right, then I could constantly go back and refer to the script and my boards and seeing how everything was timed out to figure out how to make this a big cohesive episode and not feel like just a bunch of random parts, but then have it flow together. And okay, so here I'll say the thing I was gonna say then, that because that leads right into it. Like the 99.99999% of all the comments are like 100% super crazy positive, and so I'm so happy that people like the episode. It's undeniably true, and it's the best reception I've ever gotten on anything I've ever made. So I can't thank everyone enough. The one comment that I've seen pop up a handful of times though, and to be honest, the fans aren't really saying that. I don't see normal people saying that, but I see the reviewers saying that. The reviewers have said like the pacing doesn't work the first like 8 minutes. Is a couple people even say like bad, right? Like, and then it gets good finally. But well, obviously you're allowed to have your opinion on anything. Like if anyone thinks like any of my sequences are bad or don't work, I totally take it and I'll own it, right? Because now I do own it. So okay, you think the color scheme was bad, fair. You think the compositing was bad, fair, et cetera, et cetera. But as far as pacing, I want to say I don't think that's a you have a different opinion than me kind of thing. You know, like I'm sure some people would come up to David Lynch and be like, well, you can't have sequences like this. It just doesn't work. And he would be like, I don't care. Like, I don't care what you have to say about that. And then, you know, people come up to Quentin Tarantino and say, you can't have the characters just sitting around a table talking about some random film, you know, like why would you have them talk for 8 minutes about a random film? What are you doing with the pacing? And he would be like, I don't care, you know, like you just it's not that there was a mess up or a mistake, because there are those in the episode as well, right, where I'm like, ah, man, like the Sakuga got a little messy here, like what could I have done to save that? Or, you know, that edit doesn't work as good as I thought it would. Like it is a little jarring, shoot. So there are some things that I think are not perfect and critique worthy, but in terms of the pacing, I like it this way. This would be again, Tarantino like wouldn't care that people think the pacing is crazy when there's suddenly an 8-minute scene about some dialogue, but he likes it. And so for me, I actually like action scenes and the important moments being paced to perfection, and then you can take it slow in other spots. That's not to say sacrifice. I'm specifically against that, right? As I mentioned, but my thought process was pace certain things to perfection. The damned punk scene, it's exactly timed so that like Law can start shouting his line of dialogue, then we get a couple sequences of the beam shooting out, and then he finishes his line of dialogue, and it doesn't feel like there was a gap between the line of dialogue. You know what I mean? Like, so like there was like a very specific way I wanted the cuts to go. And like, I didn't want to extend that cut even 1 second or even 12 frames. I wanted it to be like 1 second, 5 frames, 1 second, 3 seconds for this one, like exactly, right? Like, and and so I first started with all the action scenes and all the main things that the fans needed, right? You know, which was like the kid in law stuff. Then when you're done with that, you do realize you have extra time. So yes, I did have whatever 5 or 6 minutes or something. But there was still more in the script. There still needed to be a Yamato scene. There still needed to be a Momonosuke scene. There's no avoiding that those existed, the Momonosuke one at least, in the manga as well. So it wasn't a matter of for me even what should I do here. Should I extend the kid fight? Should I extend the kid-in-law bantering dialogue? Should I have more still frames of the characters looking at Misery? Because to me, that would affect the pacing and the timing of that scene, right? Misery's sequence played out in a very specific way, and all the fans seem to love it right now. Had I added more scenes of Misery, or the characters looking at Misery, or somehow extended that, even extended it via action, even if I had more action sequences, it still would change kind of the flow of these areas that I was positive were correct, right? In the way they were. And so I didn't want to touch those. And I'm glad I didn't touch those. So what I knew is I need to find ways to make now other content interesting. So I knew that Momonosuke's scene was going to last long because just based on the proper timing and the proper pacing of Kid and Law's section, I knew this naturally is how long this Momonosuke section is going to become. But it wasn't, that's not a problem for me. That's not an excuse. I'm saying I was completely welcoming of that. Okay, I'm completely content with Momonosuke scene being this long. Now, how do I make it the most interesting it can be so it doesn't become boring? I think for some people, they just don't want to watch Momonosuke. Like, they just don't want to see him. Get this freaking camera off this character. I hate this. This is stupid. And so no matter what I possibly showed, the review would be, I don't want the camera on this character. If that's the case, I can't help you, right? Because the camera's sitting on this character for a few minutes, and that's already decided.
If a Dragon Ball reference doesn't help in that circumstance,
well, so exactly, and that brings it all around. So I think I do agree there was a lot of holding on him and pushing, but like the amount of drawings in this episode already went through the roof. I couldn't have the craziest, most elaborate sequences there, and yet I think I still managed a whole bunch of them. So the drawings I tried to make sure were as cool and interesting as possible, and I do get a lot of comments also saying, oh my god, Momonosuke looks so cool there, I love it, I took a screenshot of him, it's my background or whatever, right? So all of the drawings of Momonosuke I want to be totally wonderful. I want the clouds moving in a really interesting way. I want like really good Sakuga sequences where I can even fit them, where like he pushes the clouds, where he finally gains control of the clouds, and I try to make it a big moment. The clouds are zooming around and spinning, compositing effects, the rocks cracking as Onigashima stops. So I don't think there is an issue with the overall pacing of the episode, and I don't regret at all having the camera sit where it did for as long as it did. Showing Momonosuke for that long enabled Damned Punk scene to play out very fast and snappy, right? Like it all works together. And within Momonosuke scene, again, yeah, cool Sakuga and stuff like that, and even a Dragon Ball reference, right? So there are ways to just make what you're watching interesting, no matter what it is. And I Quentin Tarantino has one like comeback for the interviewer of recently. An interviewer asked, like, how come you didn't use like Margaret Robbie's character more in your movie? And he's like, I disagree with your hypothesis. Next question. Or something like that. And it's like, I disagree with the hypothesis of the question. I did use her enough. Your question is flawed. So for me, like if you think there was something wrong with any of my sequences, critique away, all for it.
No, more what I was getting at, I guess, like, I just have this continued curiosity, like when you start a One Piece episode.
I'm not, I'm 100% not talking about you at all. Sorry, I took your question and then I went ranting, as I always do, into completely other territory. But no, I disagree with the hypothesis that there are things that are just fundamentally uninteresting. So let's say there is a 5-minute Nami and Usopp sequence, or a 5-minute Momonosuke sequence, or a 5-minute Otama sequence. I disagree with the hypothesis that it is destined to be a boring moment. I think there are ways that the viewer can have fun in that moment. So you could say I didn't make it a fun moment. That could be a fair critique, but I think I did. People are sharing the Dragon Ball reference around and making comments about Momonosuke's face looking cool and stuff. So I think that's a challenge in and of itself. How do you take a sequence that fundamentally isn't very exciting, but then make it exciting? And I'm always there for the challenge, and I'll probably always approach it that way. I will probably always approach it where I will make sure that the important parts are timed to perfection, and then I will try to find ways to make the remaining sections interesting. I believe that is the best approach to making a good episode. And last comment, I did keep trying to have themes kind of throughout. The theme, the reason there is Yamato's scene and Momonosuke's scene and the flower capital scene at the beginning is because I know fans, they don't often think about an episode as a self-contained thing, and I understand why, because it's part of a flowing story. But if I think the episode directors should, to the extent they can, try to make their episode at a self-contained thing as best as possible. So for someone coming in who doesn't know where everyone is in Onigashima right now, I think it was still important, because later on, when Puncture Vide zooms down through, crashes into the ground, Momonosuke sees it and the flower capital people don't see it. I know that in that scene, we're going to show all that stuff. We're going to show Yamato's room because the sword is going through it. We're going to show Momonosuke's reaction because that's even in the manga. And we are going to show the flower capital and the people not noticing what's happening in the distance, right? So I want to establish those areas and who's in those areas and what they're doing in those areas earlier on in the very same episode, so that it feels a bit more self-contained. Like, even someone coming in who's not familiar with what's happening in terms of these fights, they can still tell who's where and what they're doing. If I only cut to the flower capital at the very end for the first time, it would be like, oh, there's a city. Like, you know what I mean? So like, there was a rhyme and reason for wanting to show all of these places and make sure the viewer was thinking about these places early on in the episode, because it would be, even if it's slightly, it would still be slightly relevant later on in the episode. So that was my thought. I kept thinking about how to bring everything together, and I kept thinking about how to make each individual scene as interesting as possible, while the key scenes really shined. That was my thought process.
Steve, did you have any?
No, but I think we have fan ones.
All of the fan ones were mostly compliments, so I was going through it there. Or questions that I don't think Henry can answer, or the questions that Henry has answered. Like, his middle.
I had one more question.
Sam, go ahead.
Music choices.
Oh yeah.
How far ahead do you think about music?
I don't want to go into Toei's decision making and stuff like that. But I will say that the episode directors only can suggest things to a certain point, and then look at the. It's not like I can just go through every single One Piece soundtrack and be like, this there. That's not the case. Look at the staff role, and the names in relation to music and sound effects and stuff there, and they have quite a bit of power to do what they're going to do. The episode director can make suggestions and have meetings, but yeah, there are different people designated for different parts.
Interesting.
Steve, Sam, any other? No?
Not trying, because so much is covered. I never there's nothing left for me to really.
I know.
About. I'm just curious.
Henry was as thorough as usual.
I'm curious if there's now. It's like, because being a episode director is it's a huge role, a lot of responsibility. I'm curious now, like, having this experience, if you were to do it again, is there anything you could divulge into that it's like, I know for next time now, don't do that, or it's like, you know what, I really wanted to do this, It feels like a basic question, but I'm
no.
curious.
Well, no.
The answer
it's a very artist question, because that's what I'm thinking.
Yes.
That's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, that's the question in my mind. Well, I will say this: I've never had a better experience making something. Steve, I hate to say this because I don't want you to be jealous, but this is better than every single project I've ever worked on from a Western client ever. And I don't think you probably even know the experience. Like, no, because even I didn't up until this point, because every
no, I can't even imagine.
But what I'm talking about specifically, it's not the funness of working on One Piece. What I'm talking about specifically is every project of my entire life, literally my entire life, with the maybe exception of that Sturgill Simpson anthology thing. That was a little different, but even that one to a little extent, and then every single other one, like the producers would come in, make decisions. It was never what I wanted. Like, even if I got the credit, I kind of don't feel like it's mine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I 100%, right? Can relate to that. But
it's so it's so common though. You probably think like that's just the way it's done, right? Like the world has taught you like that's just the way it is. Like accept it. And I am here to say, for the first time in my life, no, dude, like I really was in charge of the episode. Like the amount that they didn't step on my toes, and there was a few comments that came down. Hey, this is a genuine producer comment that you need to be aware of. Fair enough. And they were super fair though. Like I've never had a better experience. So I don't have really any regrets. In other projects, I regret going and trying to make that thing because at the last second the producer canceled the whole scene, and so in the future I'm not gonna kill myself to try to make something that this person isn't gonna like. Like I would come away with lessons like that. But this time I really got to make my anime episode, and so like because of that, I really am left with almost no regrets. I mean, the only things that I would want to change in the future are things around quality. Like there are certain sequences that didn't come out the way I wanted it, and certain sequences that did come out the way I wanted it. But now that I look at it myself, that's not really what was in my head. So in the future, I need to learn that edits like that don't work as good as I think they do. But that's all just like little takeaways and learning experience type things. There's off the top of my head, I don't think there's anything where I'm like, oh man, I'm glad I know that now. Wow, that was a big mistake. Right. There's almost none of that. It was like everyone was respectful of everyone through the process, and I think we made something great with it. So quality control to make higher quality stuff in the future. There are some things that I can probably do to make sure Ishitani episodes don't have any bad sequence in the entire thing. My episode has a few times where the Sakuga suddenly dips, right? And so how do I fix that gap, right? It's doable to make it without a single issue, but mine had a couple issues. So things like that I'm going to consider. But beyond that, no, I think just sticking with the process. The process worked, so stick with it.
That's it's very positive because just animation, just in the entertainment industry in general, is very grueling. And it's a lot of hard work, and I'm sure there was a lot of long nights for you and everybody. But art is expression, and I know you and I both working like in the entertainment industry, we are making a product. Yeah. But when it could still be a form of expression where we could really put ourselves into it out there, and people could look at it and be like, I know that's a Henry, or I know that's a Steve. Like that's kind of if we could get to that point in our careers, then we feel like how you're feeling right 100%. Now. So.
And it's the first time in my life I felt this way. So it's not the norm in the art industry. And
congrats. I think that's what a lot of us are working towards.
And I know that I know that better than anyone from all the disappointment, but so I will appreciate the the good moments.
You both should. Henry, I guess the last question I would have is, what's next for Henry Thurlow?
I don't know exactly. Stay tuned. For people who think, oh man, I can't wait for Henry's next episode. He's gonna be on rotation now, of just like one of the directors that pops up every few months. That's not gonna be the case. Like this took a lot out of me. I had a great time, as I just explained, and I loved it, and I'm gonna do it again because I'm obviously I want to do stuff that I love, but it took a lot out of me, and the amount it took was crazy. It's probably it's not probably, it was 100% the hardest I've ever worked, and that is not easily sustainable. And so I think for a little bit, I'm going to do some animation again, like expect some maybe animation sequences from me in some upcoming episodes before I decide, and the studio as a whole decides kind of when the next big moment might be. I want more big moments. And so that's where my life, I feel, is headed as a general question. But in terms of the, next month or two of what I'm doing, for now, I'm just going to do some animation and evaluate where and when I can make something good again. I don't want to make something bad. That's why, right? Because I could very easily be like, give me another episode, and this time, this without as long a schedule or whatever. And then I'm another episode director, but But then what can I realistically deliver to the fans? Like if my next episode is not even half as good as this one, people will be like, oh, Henry had that one good episode, but then he's inconsistent. So like to the extent I can, I want to stay consistent. When I make another episode, I want it to be something that is of the quality of this episode. I will need to consider when and where I can do that very carefully. That's what I have to say.
I'll say, Henry, before the show we were talking about how you're only a few chapters behind the manga.
Yeah.
And I think even in those, there are some sequences. Okay. There's some chapters that I think you would probably really enjoy doing. There's a lot to come, I'm sure. I mean, the series is wrapping up at some point in the next decade, so...
we think.
Yeah, probably. I've been saying 2070. So we'll get there. I think we'll wrap it there, but Henry, where could people find you?
Twitter, Instagram, search for Henry Thurlow. You'll find me. Henry D. Thurlow.
I was about to say.
Yeah.
Sam, where could people find you?
They can find me on Twitter at Lucky Chainsaw.
And Steve, where can people find your art? You're muted.
Thank you, dear. Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, at Steve Yurko. Check out the Let's Play channel, ProZD Plays Games. I'm a co-host on that. And if you're at Anime Expo, I will be there in the Artist Alley, K61, way in the back this year. So I'll be there. Get there. I'll be patient.
Steve did some really cool stuff for that. And I did, the one thing I did forget to mention in this discussion is I think people said that you really set the bar high for the next and last part of Onigashima. Speaking of, Steve did a really nice print of that. That's available at Anime Expo, which is
and I'll have it there.
Yeah. I'm very excited for that Looney Tunes moment. That Warner Brothers is... Did we confirm that rumor was... No? Okay. So you can check us out at OnePiecePodcast.com. We've been doing a lot of work with that website. I want to give a big shout out to Cecil, who put together a really amazing color spread-esque thing for us. Please check it out. It's on our website. And please check us out at patreon.com/OnePiecePodcast if you haven't. For ad-free episodes, extra episodes, alternate art from Steve, which he does obviously put his whole heart and soul into. Am I correct about?
Yeah, I could say.
They represent Steve Yurko, I think is what I'm trying to say.
They represent us. That's why
Yeah,
half
I guess
of them
that's
are like
true.
Simpsons references. So
Half. Seems too low. And you could check us out anywhere, social media, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky's a thing now, I guess. So you could check us out in all those places. Or you could call us at our phone number, 347-497-MAJI.
Maji.
That phone number again, 347-497-6254. Call anytime.
Anytime.
With your questions, comments, theories, or your favorite scene in Jaws 2. Thank you. Thank you, Henry, for the 2-part interview over 2 weeks. I hope we have you back sooner rather than later, because it's always, I'm sure you could talk another few hours about
I hope
this.
later's good, because, I think everyone deserves a nice rest after a huge project.
That's true. Go take a trip, just relax for a little bit, and then...
I'll be back. Someday I will be back.
I know. Okay, good. But until then, well, not until then, until next week, my name is Zach.
And my name is Steve.
And thanks, Ed. You could also follow him at Edward One Piece. But we'll see you next week, everyone. Goodbye.